Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've thought about this one for a long time with Nate, and the reason that Nate Cavender is a special guest on this is, Nate, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the story that you told me at one point when we sat down and you shared your story with me, the emotion that I got from that story really served as the impetus to put this on video and to do it live. And so this whole project, Lessons from the Front, started out as a book project. And I wanted to write a book filled with stories from folks like yourself that served out there. And you could pull lessons away from these stories. And so as I started listening to your story, and again, the intention was to write a book. And the more I was listening to it, I was like, I can't write a book about this. These people need to be heard telling the story. So this is one of the rare exceptions today where I've actually heard the story before. And so I want to try and recount this for everybody because, again, my friend, it was one of the more powerful things I've heard. And we've had some really strong guests already and more to come. So Nate Cavender, thank you very much for being here with us.
Yeah, I'm honored to be here, and I appreciate all those kind words.
Absolutely. So what I want to do first, before we even get into your story that you so eloquently shared with me before, tell us about Nate Cavender before the military.
I grew up here in the Dallas area. I went to high school in Mesquite, and so, you know, I was actually a senior in high school on 9/11. I know you've told me that you were in before 9/11 and after. But 9/11 was really the catalyst to what drove me to want to serve when I finally got out of college. I went home and told my stepdad that I wanted to do something about it. And I was thinking about just going straight into the military after high school. And he said, well, you know, my stepdad was an Army Ranger, and he was a captain. And he said, well, you know, I'd love for you to go to college. Why don't you try seeing if you can get a ROTC scholarship? So I applied for all the scholarships with all the services and got accepted with the Air Force. So I had a 4-year scholarship to go to Texas Tech, where I went. Was in the ROTC. Was also in Sigma Chi. Had a fun fraternity life. There's a lot of good stories of how I balanced ROTC with fraternity. But once I graduated, went straight into the military and flew C-17s for 8 years. And once I separated from the military in 2015, and so about 5 years ago. And I've been working now as a civilian doing financial wellness on the sales side. We do education for employees, and also just started a concrete company here in the Dallas area. So, and recently, I don't want to forget the baby and the wife. So I did get married while I was in the military, and recently had a little girl, Blake, about a year ago.
Oh yes.
Yeah, well, I got a 1-year-old.
You first told me this whole story shortly after Blake was born.
Right.
And so I think that made it a little more powerful for me. So if I got this correctly, it's entirely possible you were hazed harder in your fraternity life than you were in your military life, being a flyboy, right?
Yeah, 100%. I'm actually not going to lie to you on
that. Oh man. Hey, you know, I love you guys. I love giving you grief more than anything else. But so
yeah.
What was it that led you to, number one, the Air Force, and number two, being a pilot? Or was it, hey, I want to be a pilot, and, you know, wherever I can fly is where I want to go?
Yeah, I think, you know, once I got the scholarship, the Air Force gave me a scholarship. I said, well, if I'm going to go in the Air Force, I want to be a pilot. So I spent, you know, college doing, everything I could to compete to get a pilot slot because it was pretty competitive, and was blessed enough to get one. And during pilot training, you kind of get racked and stacked with your peers on how you do, and then you can kind of choose what aircraft you want to go to from there. And just, talking to the other pilots, I was lucky enough to get my first choice in the C-17, just because of the mission that they flew. I love that mission. It's so versatile, and really you're always going somewhere. So that's how I ended up flying C-17s.
And so 9/11 was really what drove you into the military. You mentioned your father was your stepfather was Army Airborne or Ranger.
Ranger. Yep.
And had you, prior to 9/11, was there really any thought about that?
No, actually, I thought I was going to be at least a JUCO baseball player, but no, I didn't think I was going to serve the military until that moment. That was really what changed it for me.
Describe the feeling you had when you witnessed that as a senior in high school. I can only imagine it was pretty emotional.
Yeah, I mean, I hear my parents talk about, they know where they were and what was going on when JFK was shot, and that was the same for me on 9/11. I was in the hallway at school. We were just getting to school. I think we were getting ready to go to our first class, and people started talking about it. And then we went into first class. They were showing it on TV, and it was a lot of different emotions. For me, it was a little bit, a little scared. But you're so young at that point in time, you don't really understand what that might mean. But there was a lot of anger. I felt a lot of anger, and then also a weird sense of pride that, hey, like this, we got to do something about this. And so that's it really did change. I think it really changed the trajectory of my life for sure. And so many others too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, but you acted on it, and, it sounds like you got really good guidance from your dad, from the standpoint of, he didn't tell you, hey, don't give in to your anger, but it sounded like he was very logical about how to channel it, and hey, yeah, you can just rush off and join, and I'm not going to tell you no, but you might want to think about this. Sounds like you got some really good counsel growing up.
Yeah, without a doubt. He laid out the options and let me decide for myself, and I'm really glad he did that.
So you graduate college, you go to flight school, and then that takes you overseas. I mean, what happened there?
So once you complete pilot training, it's about a year long, about a year and a half before you can go fly an operational mission. And by this time, I'm about 22, 23 years old. And Afghanistan and Iraq are both still going on strong. Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom were going strong, and C-17s were a real big part of both of those operations because we had so much movement of supplies, people, and then also, we had a lot of medical evacs that had to be done that C-17s played a big role in. And so my first base that I got assigned to was out at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey. And from there, I went on my first deployment and was flying missions prior to that as well. But, yeah, we were busy. I mean, in the first year, I think I flew 600 hours, which is a lot for somebody to fly in a year. And that continued for probably the next 3 or 4 years of my career. It was just we were nonstop busy. I could be one day in Afghanistan, and the next mission I was in Iraq. It was pretty wild.
So you guys flew a lot of medevacs, and that's that's that conjures up a lot of really powerful emotions, because the medevacs they're real. That's where you see the real effects of war. And I remember you telling the story originally And you know what? I'm just gonna ask you, tell the story that you've told me before that just really left that lasting impression on you.
Yeah. Well, it's an emotional story for me because, it's probably in my military service, it highlighted one of my biggest regrets, but I also was able to learn from it. But in that story, I was flying on it was my third mission ever. So pretty green co-pilot, but at the time I'm 23, 24, and I'm thinking I'm pretty hot stuff. And I'm doing well, and I feel good about how the mission's going. And we're flying over Afghanistan one night, and I think we were just headed down to Kandahar to drop off some supplies. But on our way, we got a call over the radio and said that we needed to drop into Bagram Air Base. And they didn't really say why, but we had something we had to pick up at Bagram. So we diverted into Bagram.
Real quick, explain to people who may not be familiar with Iraq and Afghanistan, where is that in relation to the bad guys?
Well, it's in Afghanistan, and the bad guys are all around. It's probably it is a really busy place, especially for aircraft, and there are constant operations going on, not only around the base but from the base when it comes to aircraft. So it's really, really busy place, and a lot of folks that are injured end up there so they can get evacuated out to Germany, where we have hospitals there. And so little did we know that was the reason that we were headed in there that night, was to pick somebody up that needed to get to a hospital pretty quickly. And so, it was pitch dark when we got there. They told us to shut down our engines on the ramp. And when we did, I saw, we opened up the back, the door to the ramp to the C-17, and I saw a bunch of people kind of come on carrying somebody in a stretcher, working on them. They were all around them, and I couldn't really see them that well. And so my job as a co-pilot was to go out and do the walk around, make sure everything's good on the airplane, get us buttoned up, ready to roll, make sure we got gas, everything like that. And so I'm kind of focused on what I'm doing, not paying too much attention to what's going on and what's coming onto the aircraft. And, as I come back onto the aircraft and I'm getting ready to walk back up to the cockpit, feeling pretty good, like, oh man, I'm doing awesome. And we're really pushing the mission. I look over and I catch a glimpse of the soldier that they brought on board, and I saw his face, and he was probably no more than 19, 20 years old. He was younger than I was. And then I looked looked him over to see if I could see where he was injured, and he was missing everything from the waist down. And so that's when I realized that, I'm not so cool anymore. And this is the real deal. And so, I got back up into my seat in the cockpit. I was a little bit taken aback by what I just saw, but hey, I got focused on the mission. Let's go, 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 go. We got to get this guy back. We got him back, and he made it back to Germany. He lived through the flight. But my biggest regret to this day is I never asked anyone what his name was, where he was from, what unit he belonged to. I didn't know anything about him, but yet he just had the most life-changing experience on mine and everyone else's behalf. And I knew nothing about this guy except that I got him back to Germany alive. And to this day, it's my biggest regret, because I don't know if he survived after that. I don't know how he's doing now. I wish I could go visit him and see how he's doing. As you can see, I still get emotional about it because it's my biggest regret. But that just taught me then, you got to sometimes take a step back and really think about the people that are in the trenches with you, that are helping you with your mission, whatever that is. I mean, it's easy for a 24, 23-year-old hotshot pilot to forget like what, that there's kids, this 18, 19-year-old kid that just lost half of his body. It's easy for you to forget for a second that those guys are making sacrifices, those men and women. Same for, CEOs that are getting ready to, or founders of companies that are getting ready to sell their company for X multiples of money, to forget all those people that helped them build it to where it is when they're selling it. Right. So there was a huge lesson for me to be learned there. It was one of humility, and just being able to have perspective on things every once in a while. Take a step back, take a deep breath.
Yeah, and I remember when you told, I'd heard the story once before, and I was very moved by the story. And so I asked you to sit down and recount the story for me again, and you did. And I remember asking you, okay, what was your takeaway? When Blake, because again, Blake had just been, I feel like I know Blake, by the way. She was just born. I think 2 weeks earlier. You had dark rings under your eyes. I mean, it was obvious you'd been up. And I remember, hey, when Blake is, 10, 15 years old, what did you take away that you're going to teach her? And you quickly pivoted to another story saying, well, it really kind of goes back to this. And you were telling about the young soldier who was accompanying a buddy home, and he wouldn't leave his side. And what you learned from that first endeavor is what you carried into the second one. And that one, if you could go into that was a powerful story as well.
Yeah. So, fast forward probably 3 or 4 years, and I'm now an aircraft commander, and we are headed into Afghanistan again. And we're asked to divert in to pick somebody up. Well, this time it was an angel flight, which is basically somebody that has paid the ultimate sacrifice. And we didn't really know it at that time either, but man, it still sticks out in my head. It's so vivid. When we dropped that back ramp, I could hear bagpipes playing, and I quickly told my air crew to come to attention because I knew what was happening. There was they were carrying on someone that they had lost, and so they carried him on in the American flag draped casket, and they secured it to the floor of the C-17, and then we basically took off from there. Well, units always send someone back with someone that they've lost to make sure that if they have the manpower, to make sure that they're delivered to the family. And so there was a young soldier that accompanied this soldier on board. And if you've never been on a C-17 or a military aircraft, they have metal floors. They're like it's a big cargo jet. And the floors get really cold as we're flying over the Atlantic coming back home. We're up at 38,000 feet, and the floors get really cold. And but that did not keep this soldier that was accompanying his friend from laying on that floor the entire way. And it was about a 10 to 12 hour flight, if I remember right. That soldier did not even get up to go to the bathroom, from what my loadmaster was telling me. And so I remembered, everything was coming back to me from the previous story that I told. And I thought to myself, I want to go make sure that this guy knows that I'm going to remember them, and I'm going to know about who they are and what his name is. And so I went down to ask the guy on the floor, how he was doing, if I could get him anything. And he said, "I'm okay, sir." And then I said, well, what's your friend's name? And he said, Staff Sergeant Peterson. And so I'll always remember Staff Sergeant Peterson and what he did for everybody and me and my family. And I was honored enough to bring him back after he did pay the ultimate sacrifice for all of us.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that stood out to me, I could picture it very clearly when you were telling that story, that I think your crew chief went to the escorting soldier and said, before takeoff, we need you to take your seat.
Yeah.
And he looked up at your crew chief, and I'll just keep it as simple as he told him no, that he wasn't going anywhere. And I think that part right there showed me the true bond of brotherhood that we have in the service. And you know, the way that your crew chief responded and the way you responded, which was basically to say, you know what, sometimes it's okay to set aside protocols. Sometimes it's okay to set aside, you know, the processes and procedures that we're all taught to follow. Let's be human beings here for a minute. That always stood out with me. And I don't know, man, just the whole concept of how you remembered from the first time to the second time, ask their name, the humility that came along with that. I salute you for that. I mean, it was just one of the more powerful stories along these lines I've heard.
Yeah, I hope that I hope that people can take that, because it doesn't just apply to a military situation either. I mean, or first responder situation. It applies to everything that we all do, because there's always somebody that's helping you get to where you're going. You're not doing anything by yourself.
No, you're not. You know, and you brought up a really good point about you know, companies, you know, individuals selling their companies, and right now you know, what we're dealing with in the world of COVID. I mean, it's you know, these are not faceless, you know, nameless faces. These are, you know, these are people that have real connections. So, man, I tell you, I get chills. You know, I've listened to that when I recorded it before. You know, I got chills again now. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing.
Well, yeah, thanks for letting me share, and I hope people can take something from it, because you know, I think you heard me telling at the event we did for Carry the Load not too long ago. There's thousands of more stories like Staff Sergeant Peterson. Not only, you know, military men and women that have given the ultimate sacrifice, but also first responders. And so we, you know, Memorial Day and what Carry the Load does, I mean, I couldn't be honored to be just a part of, or at least associated with, an organization like Carry the Load that does what they do. And now that I have a daughter that I want to be able to teach what being an American really means and what sacrifices were given for this flag, I can't wait to take her to the walks, the marches, and take her to camp out and show her what that's all about. So it's just really awesome to be able to help you guys and be a part of what you're doing. So I thank you for that.
Well, and we appreciate your continued service, and I want you to talk about that a little bit. I mean, you served in an ambassador role for Carry the Load, but what else are you doing to continue your service? Because like many of us, you know, it gets in our blood, and you know, we can't stop.
Yeah.
We have to continue serving our fellow citizens. So what are you continuing to do?
Yeah. Well, I'm since I had Blake, I obviously took a little bit of time off there for a minute, but I'm getting back involved with Carry the Load, and in fact, I don't think I've told you this yet, but I'm actually going back into, well, I'm waiting to go to my physical to go back into the reserves. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I got the itch to get back in the fight again. So I may be, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing yet. I may be serving at a air operations center, or I may get back in the cockpit. I'm not really sure yet.
You're still young and fit. I'm old and fat. So I'm glad you're able to still do it. But well, that's awesome.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, very good. Well, obviously, you know, one of the most important things that we do, Nate, in this time is, you know, for those who carried us, like Staff Sergeant Peterson, they carried us. They carried our load at one point, and so we want to make sure that we're continuing to carry the load of others, and in their memory. So, would you share with us who you are carrying this year?
Well, that's who I'm carrying, is Staff Sergeant Peterson, and also, you know, all the others not only gave that sacrificed while I was serving, but will sacrifice in the future, and those that sacrificed before I served. And also wanted to say that I'm also carrying all the first responders and doctors and nurses right now that are helping us get through this tough time. I can't imagine what they're going through right now. So my prayers are with them as well.
Well, they are an extension of the first responder community, and I agree. We do need to give them credit. So
that's right.
Well, Nate, man, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much. Always a joy, and I look forward to seeing you down the road real soon. Hopefully, when you're back in your flight suit, and you tell me about your latest travels. So,
all right, we'll see. I'll keep you updated. Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it.
Very good. And for all of you out there, thank you very much for joining us on another Lessons from the Front. Coming up this week, also, we've got former SEAL team member Monty Heath on Wednesday, and former Marine Jake Schick. Another big reason why we're sitting here, Nate, because it was Jake's story that prompted me to go down the book route. It was your story that prompted me to go down this route. So for all of you out there, my name is Todd Boating, and I'm carrying Sergeant R.E. Worley. Who are you carrying?